If there's one thing I hate in sports, it's when people call something a must-win game when it's not mathematically a must-win game. And yet, this is a must-win game for the Texans. Look, the Texans have lost 4 of their last 6. They've shown blemishes and warts that I didn't expect them to show. I didn't expect them to lag behind so drastically and dramatically in the second half offensively. So when you're at a position in the year where you're going up against the worst passing defense in the league, that's what the Jaguars have, and you've scored 1 offensive touchdown in the last 6 weeks. Yeah. They've got to score touchdowns in the second half. Simple as that. The Jaguars, to start off with storylines for this game, can Trevor Lawrence be the shot in the arm that they need? They've scored fewer than double digits in their last 2 games, but they also started Mac Jones at quarterback. They've slugged it out with some good teams. Trevor Lawrence has had good performances this year. As of late, in his last several games, he's been a better quarterback than C.J. Stroud, but he comes into this game playing with a separated shoulder that he sustained against Philadelphia while scrambling. So for Trevor Lawrence and whether or not he can get it going today, I'm very much leaning on Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. Lawrence doesn't take a lot of sacks. He's been sacked 16 times this year, but Will Anderson has 7 sacks in his last 4 games. Danielle Hunter has 5 sacks in the last 2 weeks. Those guys are humming. The rest of the defensive line has come along and provided a lot of juice. So make Trevor Lawrence, who's got a really good knack for kind of layering the ball over the middle, taking advantage of linebackers or poor safety play. That's some of the stuff that's hurt the Texans this year defensively. Make him really uncomfortable, and I'm hoping that he's a little less likely to scramble, a little less likely to pull the ball down and run, and maybe takes a few more sacks today. The Jaguars' defensive weakness at cornerback especially, it's one when he's matched up versus Darby. Darby's the big one. He's allowing a league worst 2.0 yards per coverage snap. That's worst amongst all cornerbacks. So Nico will be probably, playing left side, right side. He's going to have opportunities versus Darby, and he's got to take advantage of those opportunities. The Jaguars play a lot of man. This came up the first time the Jaguars played the Texans. The Jaguars backed off and played a lot more zone. They weren't as man-heavy as they typically are, but they're going to play some man today. And CJ's got 7 touchdowns, 1 interception against man coverage, and especially with Nico Collins on the field. You just can't negate some of these deep strikes to Nico Collins or other guys. You can't have these big plays called back due to penalty. It's as simple as that. C.J. Stroud and where he's been. The one really promising stat I saw this morning was C.J. Stroud and what percentage of the time is he responsible for the pressure he faces. And my eyeball test has told me that it's not like a young quarterback who's creating problems for himself. Joe Burrow early in his career created a lot of problems for himself while also dealing with inept offensive line play. Go back to David Carr. David Carr created a lot of problems for himself. With CJ is responsible, or at least partly responsible, for pressure 11% of the time. That's actually 21st lowest out of 28 eligible quarterbacks. He's been really good at not creating pressure, making mistakes that cause issues for him. You look at Pat Mahomes. Pat Mahomes has caused pressure or been responsible for pressure the second most in the league behind Bo Nix, and it's at like 21 or 22%. So CJ's operating at a pretty good level there. It all comes down to the offensive line. Some of the things the Texans are doing that have worked better. I think they've gotten better at picking up the blitz in some regards. I think they've gotten better on a man-by-man basis. It's that left guard position that's just a huge, huge issue. 25% of the pressure this year has come right through the left guard position, whether it's Juice Scruggs or Kenyon Green or Kendrick Green. The left guard position has been just an absolute nightmare. And I'm honestly kind of surprised at myself that I'm saying this, because I don't like Titus Howard as a guard, and yet he might be the least of all evils right now, if you can trust Blake Fisher at right tackle. So if we see that move at some point, I don't think Titus Howard is a good guard, but he's better than what we've been seeing out there if they can trust Blake Fisher. So we might see that somewhere along the way. The Texans, when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, the Texans lead the league with 197 quarterback pressures, and that's by the NFL Next Gen. I believe CJ Stroud has faced pressure by those same stats 192 times. It's almost a wash. Like the great pressure of the Texans defense is being negated almost completely by the pressure they're allowing on the offensive side of the ball. This is where it's hard to find easy answers. Oh yeah, please everybody, as Brandon points out, you can like the video up in the upper right, depending on whether you're watching this on Twitter or on YouTube. So the pressure is key. And like Tim Settle, Derek Barnett, all those other guys as well, Jerry Hughes, whomever's out there playing today, this is where we are. Like I can only hope for so much improvement from the offensive line. I can hope that the defense that's gotten better and better as the season's gone along and providing consistent pass rush, but also being able to contain mobile quarterbacks, they need to build on that. Like they need to be all time. So is it unfair to ask that of Danielle Hunter or Will Anderson to be just the bell cow for the entire team? Maybe, but I feel like they can handle it. Guys are second and fourth in total sacks right now in the NFL. So this needs to be the December of the Texans pass rush. We got to come up with a good nickname for him or something. But I feel good about that today. I think that I put on my pick'ems for underdog, which if you use the promo code Seth, you can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash and a free pick. But I included Will Anderson getting at least one sack today, or at least a half a sack today. He gets to get one sack. I feel good about that today. He's really humming. The other big thing, just the storyline of the Texans' road dominance in the AFC South. They've won 9 straight AFC South road games, 8 of their 9 last games in Jacksonville. It's a fun little streak that the Texans continue in a year in which there haven't been as many of awesome streaks as we would have hoped. Yeah, we got to take advantage of Trevor being off of rhythm with his timing. Yeah, it doesn't have to result in sacks. It's just got to result in Trevor Lawrence being taken out of his game. Look, for better or for worse, whether it's his fault or not, he's still kind of a first read quarterback. You know, man, he's awesome if he can get his first read. It's his ability to create after that, especially with the injury. It's in his non-throwing arm, but I think he's going to be a little less comfortable doing some of that extra stuff on top of it. Taking him out of his rhythm and taking away his first read, that's key. But then on the back end, Eric Murray and Kalen Bullock have to be really smart and disciplined. We can't be biting on underneath moves. You know, we can't be getting beat with double moves deep. You got to tackle. And they're gonna, with Jimmy Ward moving down to the star position to replace Jalen Petrie, there's going to be that much more pressure on the safeties today. So those guys playing clean, because the Texans defense, they play awesome defense 95% of the snaps. And then 5% of the snaps, they're making errors on the back end that they can't mess with. Any word on Christian Harris? That'd be another nice big Christmas surprise. The report a few weeks ago, and I apologize, I can't remember who reported it, was that he might be back by week 15, which would be after the bye week, or at least that's when they'll start looking at him. So there's a chance they get Christian Harris back at some point. Yes, Bobby Slowick hasn't been bad this year. I'm done beating around the bush. Bobby Slowick got up in his press conference last week and basically, in a defense of the interior offensive line, pointed out that, hey, we've been bad everywhere. We've been bad with the tight ends. We've been bad with the offensive tackles at times. We've been bad with the running backs at times. I think there are times where Joe Mixon looks like he's pressing and trying to break the big play instead of getting 4 yards and then see what happens after that. But all of that comes back on the offensive coordinator. That's, if you're pointing out execution is the issue week in and week out, then as the offensive coordinator, if the guys aren't executing the things that you're asking them to do, that falls back on the offensive coordinator. I don't know how many changes I expect them to make unless this is an abysmal failure today. If the offense pops off, do you think we'll still see a play call or personnel change during the bye week? Good, very appropriately timed question, Josh Arnoldi. I think there's a very good chance that they at least change up how they go about calling the plays and maybe what they do during the week. The attention to detail just isn't there. I've always said I think the common denominator amongst good coaches, whether they're old school grumpy football coaches or new age guys like Sean McVay or whomever else, it's the attention to detail, the minute detail. It's nailing down those little things that's uniform across all great NFL coaches. You can't get away with just being a good recruiter like you can in college. You've got to have the talent, but then execute. The talent on the offensive side of the ball is not executing the finer details. You have a great play and it's called back, not even because of aggressive penalties like a hold or something, but because of stupid procedural stuff or false starts. Those kinds of things you should clean up, and that falls back on the offensive coordinator. Some of the physical mismatches on the offensive line, or just maybe like the core ethos of the way the offensive line operates. I don't think that Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard, as great as Laramie Tunsil is in pass protection, there is not a Penei Sewell or Trent Williams dog to him in the run game or in his play in general. And across the board, you don't see that dog mentality out of Titus Howard. And when you're a team that's trying to set things up for the play action, when you're trying to use condensed formations because that tends to spring big plays in big crossing routes and all of that, it doesn't work if you don't first and foremost have the ability to just hit guys in the face. Just impose your will on them physically. It doesn't set everything out. And I'm not talking about establish the run for this, that. There's a physical element that Bobby Slowick wants to have on this team that they just haven't demonstrated versus good run defenses. Now, the Jaguars are not a good run defense the same way the Titans were, but they can at least show some of that, I suppose. Double tap the screen, everybody. Yeah, give me a like. All right, Bulls on Parade is the nickname. We need a new one because Bulls on Parade was a good nickname for the 2011 crew. House of Pain was awesome back in the day, but for something for this defense, some kind of sack exchange type thing, something that's predicated on the like the Four Horsemen, something cool like that. Why don't the Texans use the tush push? It's so unstoppable. Why don't we use it? Is it a pride thing? The thing about the tush push, I was thinking about the tush push more than I wanted to because I was watching the Eagles versus the Jaguars yesterday. So the Eagles actually failed in some short yardage situation, as did the Jaguars. Going into that game, and that was when that was the last game Trevor Lawrence played before he missed 2 games. The Jaguars are awful on 3rd and 1. At one point in that game, the Jaguars failed on a 3rd and 1, and I want to say that they'd been 1 for 9 in that situation leading into the game. So that's an opportunity, something to think about today if the Jaguars are in 3rd and 1. The tush push has not been as effective for other teams as it has been for the Eagles, and I think that speaks to a couple things. One is that the Eagles' offensive line is a pretty damn respectable bunch low these past several years while they've been using the tush push. And then the other thing is that, there is something to having a running back that can squat twice his body weight, a quarterback that can, like Jalen Hurts, who can squat twice his body weight. So that's where I think it's way more than just the X's and O's with the tush push. But a good question. QB sneak in general also. Saks Fifth Avenue. That feels a little bit like a Carlos Correa type nickname. Something he would have. The Crash Out Boys. Let's see. Hunter sack today. Bullock interception. Ooh, a Bullock interception. That would be nice. Case needs to be out there on the sidelines coaching. Okay, because he's on IR. And I can't remember whether he was released with an injury or whether he was put on IR, however he's. But Case, I wouldn't be surprised if Case goes into coaching. I don't know where he is right now in whatever rehab or anything he needs to be doing. Let's see. I don't know why the game was moved to Fox. I'm generally ignorant about things within my own profession. Where do we go if we lose to the Jags? I don't want to think about that, Kenneth. Kenneth, damn it. Don't make me think about stuff potentially 4 hours from now. Oh, the Will Hunt boys. Oh, something like Goodwill Hunting. But okay. Yeah. Some kind of Goodwill Hunting thing. Yeah, I know. Okay. This is actually UXG Freestyles, who has some good cynical takes. Very good cynical. And I say that as a connoisseur of cynical takes. Yeah, that offensive line ain't getting it done. That's the last. That's like when they lined up last week and they thought they were going to run it right up the gut versus one of the best defensive tackle tandems in the league. They ain't them. I'm optimistic about today. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game than people would have anticipated, mostly because I'm nervous about some of the back end big play gaffes by the Texans, but also because the Jaguars have the worst passing offense in the league. Please like, subscribe. If you're watching this on X, go check out my YouTube stream, please. Just search Seth Payne. And it's me, some stand-up comedian, and then a Yale theology doctorate. Those are the most preeminent Seth Paynes on social media.